Welcome to the Lawless Astrology channel. My name's Dabney and I'm an evolutionary astrologer. I have back with me Nick Dagan Best, who is a Lawless Astrology favorite. Everybody does request you to come back on, so I'm glad that you're coming on in a pretty regular cadence. Nick is an absolute expert when it comes to recognizing historical patterns in the astrology. And so he has a lot to say about what's going on. He's definitely called a lot of what's going on. And so I'm excited to have this conversation because February is such a big month this year for all of us collectively as we kind of begin to step over the threshold into what's coming. So, Nick, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you,
Have
Dabney. Great to be
Nick is
back.
available for readings. They're very affordably priced. So I'm always shocked that he has availability. So, if you are interested in a reading with Nick, I've had one and it gave me a little faith to go on when I needed it most. Nick, do you have anything else going on that you'd like to promote or talk about?
Yeah, consultations can be booked at my website, nickdaganbestastrologer.com. I'm also finally this astrology software that I had a hand in making. I'm one of the co-founders of the company. That's coming out with its official zero point 0.1 version February 10th on Tuesday.
Wow. Congratulations.
Called Nechepso. So look up nechepso.com for information on that, nechepso.com. And aside from that, I'm also working on these astrology video essays I keep talking about releasing. I had to wait for this software to come out so I could use this version that we've been working on to make these videos. So that's all about to happen. I've had a huge gate that's been in my way all like since last August finally open and let me through. So very excited. So people can check out patreon.com/Nick Dagan Best if you're interested in getting early access to those video essays, and nechepso.com for the software, and nickdaganbestastrologer.com, the consultations tab on my website to book a reading.
Amazing. Okay, so it is February 2026. And speaking of gateways, let's talk about this gateway that we are experiencing.
Yeah,
Got
well
on.
put.
Uh, Nick asked me how Portugal was, and I had to say to him, I felt like I was in a dream state. It didn't feel very real because there was so much going on back home. And so there was a lot of processing going on. So, talk about February and how it's come in and wherever you'd like to go first.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, everything is it. Well, not everything's in Aquarius, but right now, as we speak, 5 planets are in Aquarius. Mercury is about to leave. It'll probably be in Pisces by the time this comes out. So, for those of you watching, there are still 4 planets in Pisces, although there were 5 when we recorded this. So, Pluto, Mars, the Sun, Venus, and Mercury. And yeah, that's it's been quite the concentration of planets in that one sign. While that's been happening, Uranus just stationed direct just a few days ago, and Neptune has entered Aries. Saturn's about to enter Aries. The two of them come into a conjunction on February 20th. And eclipse season is also on the way. And before this month is over, we'll have had a solar eclipse. A lot on the table. The Saturn Neptune conjunction is here at last. I mean, we came very close last summer, but this is really the big collision of the two. And I've been saying for the longest time, certainly for the past year, that Saturn Neptune conjunction is about clarity, is about seeing the truth, seeing the bigger picture, really, and everyone having some kind of awakening. There's something that we didn't see, that even if it was in front of our face, we just couldn't recognize it until the moment we do. Certainly this is playing out in the politics. A certain news figure whose name rhymes with Jeffrey Epstein. He was born January 20th, 1953. So first of all, he had the sun at 0 Aquarius. So transiting Pluto all year since the new administration took hold, transiting Pluto entered Aquarius and has been conjunct the natal sun of Jeffrey Epstein, even though Jeffrey Epstein himself has not been natal for the last 6 years. But Pluto does have this kind of Lazarus like effect, bringing life back to the dead, so to speak. And it's almost been like that. It's almost been like the guy has been haunting the presidency from beyond the grave. It's a real kind of Pluto transit. But the other thing is this Jeffrey Epstein fellow also was born at a time when there was a Saturn Neptune conjunction happening in 1953. They happen every 36 years. So we had one in 1953, we had one in 1989, and now we're having one in 2026. And yeah, that's sort of where we find ourselves and why he's causing so much trouble from beyond the grave, and just in the past week or so with the latest dump, which I think happened just as Uranus was stationing direct, the latest dump of files. There are all these revelations, all kinds of people who said they'd never been to the island. It turns out they've been to the island, and careers have been ruined, overnight over this. Certainly in England,
I
it
was going
could
to say,
bring
at least
down,
abroad, they're picking up
yeah,
on it, but maybe
yeah. In
it'll catch
England, it
up.
could bring down the government. Yeah, England, it looks like that can really happen. But in the U.S., it's making an impact. It's true, not quite as swiftly and thoroughly as it seems to be happening in England. But I mean, they're not being ignored entirely.
I'm very grateful for the alternative media and the independent journalists that are pouring through these things because there's clearly not an investment in that in the legacy media. I clicked on a New York Times thing today, and all they talked about was Norway and
Mhm.
England. They did not mention one name in the US, which so it's very interesting
Mm.
to see the protective mechanisms that are around. But I did want to kind of piggyback on one thing that you said there, because I don't want to get off of this topic necessarily, but both Renee Good and Alex Preddy also were born under Saturn Neptune conjunction.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Which is pretty amazing. Yeah, good eye. I saw that myself. And yeah, like I mean, I'd love to get, of course, the birthdays of the people who murdered them, but yeah, it's quite a thing for both of them to have done that, to have that configuration in their chart. I do have Renee Goods. I think I have both their birthday. Yeah, here she is. She was born April 2nd, 1988, and I may or may not have put. I've got Alex Preddy's shooting. I may or may not have put his date of
But you
birth there.
also, I want to just, I think it's interesting because also Candace Owens and Erica Kirk, who were
Right.
going at it recently too, also Saturn Neptune conjunction. So it's interesting to see these people who are born under a Saturn Neptune conjunction kind of coming up in the news and playing a role in this kind of Shakespearean drama that we're all witnessing.
Very much, very much. Yeah, I mean, Candace Owens and this whole drama with Erica Kirk and all these weird, charges that she makes. Uh, I mean, she's quite a character, to put it mildly.
It'll be
Um,
interesting to see what other Saturn Neptune figures emerge uh,
yeah.
during this time. So I just wanted to give that aside since you had brought that up because I was not aware of that with um,
Well, I mean, AOC is Saturn Neptune. So yeah, Candace is there. Erica Kirk is indeed there. George Santos, if he winds up resurfacing,
please no,
uh,
please no.
big no. Yeah, but yeah, those are some of the more immediate ones. The other thing that's happening is once once we get into eclipse season, there's going to be a solar eclipse at the end of Aquarius. And the North Node is on its way into Aquarius later this year. And I found something kind of extraordinary when I was looking at my file of charts relating to the life of Trump. I found that if I looked for charts where the sun was conjunct the North Node in Aquarius. Okay, so just bear with me here. I'm going to put this up again. Sun and Uranus, Sun and North Node conjunct in Aquarius. Get this list of names from my Trump file that come up when I look at this combination. Um, First of all, Jeffrey Epstein, January 20th, 1953. Jay Powell, the current chair of the Fed, February 4th, 1953, who Trump is bashing heads with. Jeb Bush was born February 11th, 1953. I mean, he's not really in the picture these days, but it's interesting. He, Powell, and Epstein are all born within about 2 weeks of each other or so. And then 19 years later, because that's a configuration that repeats itself every 19 years. 19 years later, from going from 1953 to 1972, we get Amy Coney Barrett, Mike Johnson, and Garrett Graves. But also, if we jump ahead a few years after that, in 2009, Trump's own grandson, Donald Trump Jr., Donald Trump III, who was born in 2009, also has that. So it's quite that was quite a list of names to jump out. Mike Johnson, the current speaker, Epstein himself, Jay Powell, all these Amy Coney Barrett, one of the judges that Trump appointed to the Supreme Court. So it's very curious that there's such a concentration of these pivotal people who have that just that simple combination. Trump himself is Sun North Node in Gemini, so it's another Sun North Node in an air sign type of synastry deal. But I think it's there's something about that. These are people that Trump will at times be an ally with, and then at times not, I suppose.
Very interesting. Okay. So they have Sun conjunct the North Node in Aquarius. Is that what you
Yeah,
said?
yeah,
Okay. And we are going to be entering into that. And so these people will be activated in their nodal returns.
yeah. It's something that's clearly that has a special resonance for Trump.
Very interesting. Okay. Very interesting. So we've had this pileup so we've had stelliums, meaning like planets in like several planets in a sign. So we had that in Aquarius. And as you mentioned, it's starting to shift, and we will next have it in Pisces. But while it's still in Aquarius, we're then going to be entering into Saturn moving direct in Aries and then the eclipse. So let's start talking about, from a big picture, what you think the stellium in Aquarius has brought to the forefront.
Yeah.
And then
Well,
let's talk about Saturn moving forward in Aries.
yeah. Well, you might remember when I was on the show last month. Um, I mentioned it sort of came to me. I said, "Oh yeah, the last time we had a stellium this big in Aquarius was in 1962 when Jackie Kennedy had like a 1 hour live broadcast from the White House where she showed off her new not renovation, her new redecoration of the White House. She had put all this work and effort into tracking down these historical items and did this whole redecoration. And there was a 1 hour broadcast on TV. And now here we are 64 years later. There's a stellium in Aquarius. The first lady has a big media event. The White House is being renovated, so to speak. And not to mention the Kennedy Center. Excuse me, the Kennedy the Gulf of America Center um, is going through some problems. I know it's sad. I mean, we're laughing, but it's quite sad. So yeah, there are some interesting repetitions. I didn't know Melania's movie was coming out when I said that thing about Jackie Kennedy. I mean, obviously we know the White House is going through something, but it did strike me as odd that the parallel, not to draw too much of a comparison, but just yeah, big media event, First Lady, White House. You know, the some of the pillars there are definitely being repeated. So that's all been curious. The Melania's she's got Ice Queen vibes, to put it mildly. So to have her movie come out when there's this massive stellium in Aquarius is also kind of interesting in and of itself. I mean, with Jackie Kennedy, who was a Leo, she was on the show to show off what she had done with the White House. It wasn't like about her; it was about something she had done, and she was like the hostess offering this. Whereas the Melania movie is really about Melania.
And it's not actually even not in some ways. I mean, I mean, from what I can understand, it just follows her around in stilettos and like it doesn't reveal much about her past or her history.
No, to put it, no. I mean,
What's
I
fascinating,
didn't expect it to.
yeah, and so I think that this happens the Aquarius stellium, we get this uprising in Minneapolis. We get people really taking to the streets. We also get the parallels with what you're talking about there with the Melanian movie. We get basically a decimation of the Washington Post as well. We get
Mm.
so funding this documentary to the tune of $70 million with promotions coinciding with, I think it's like 30% of staff layoffs or something like that, which can be potentially a death spiral for the Washington Post, which is a very storied institution in the US that helped take down President Nixon with Watergate. And so it's really interesting to see, like, I had to kind of check in. Like, I've never been to the Kennedy Center, to be honest with you. I've never visited the White House. So having the East Wing torn down, it actually does not affect my life. Okay. So, and it is our legacy. It is the history we grew up with. And so there is something about these institutions being really destroyed and but also a mirror being held up at the same time is fascinating. So I am really disheartened about the Washington Post, but I had already canceled my subscription. I kind of had already written it off. And I think that's part of why we had the layoffs. So anyway, I'm just kind of putting this out there that I think it's part of this bigger decimation. And yet there is kind of a mirror like, well, I've never been to the East Wing, and like, I guess buildings come down. And I'm not saying it's okay. I think it's just part of the what's coming next. So, thoughts.
Yeah, I mean it's true. I mean, a lot of it is symbolic, although there's a lot of money being spent. Um, the optics of it all. Like you said, the Washington Post being closed as Melania's movie comes out, as like all these things being coincidental in the literal sense of the word, all happening at once, is quite the optical mind f.
Yes,
Um,
that's a great way
so
to put it.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, I mean that is what it is. I mean the in a lot of ways, there are bubbles bursting. There's things happening with regard to AI that are being recalibrated, things that are happening, to cryptocurrency that are being recalibrated. I mean, that's the thing about Saturn Neptune. Everyone sees the truth of everything. It's like when the light goes on in the bar at 3 in the morning and you really see who you're going home with, that old feeling, like, oh, you looked really great 5 minutes ago. I remember that kind of thing happening. It's been a long time since I was in that situation, but yeah, there is that sort of that lights on feeling, and everyone, for better for worse, and no one has known it all. Some of us might have been right about some things, but there are other things that take us by surprise, or that we didn't expect um, to have to accept are true.
I got fewer troll comments on my last video where
Oh,
I was very clear about where I talked about the Epstein files and I talked about Uranus going direct. And I talked about it being a necessary tipping point that the unfortunate thing is so much darkness and disturbing things have been happening. It's just we're finding out about them now. So it's not like it hasn't been happening. It's just and then there's like the reminder. I grew up in the 90s. Like I was a young, girl in the 90s and like starting out in my 20s and some of the stories I hear, I can put myself back in that time and be like, yeah, I could see how that would happen. That could have happened to me. And so I find it interesting that there were fewer people that defended him in my comments. There were a few, but fewer. And that's kind of coinciding with him going down in the polls. Like, I think there are people starting to be like, oh, they're awful quiet about the Epstein
yeah.
file.
Yeah. Some people liked him because he freaks people out and offends them, and those people still like him. But some people liked him because they thought he was anti-war. Some people liked him because they thought he might be good for the economy. Some people liked him because they thought he would do something about, you know, immigration that, was in line with their existing values. And those people he's lost.
Yeah, so it's
Um,
interesting to see. So Saturn now, so Neptune already moved into Aries. And for me, that to some degree has, and then Uranus going direct at the final degrees of Taurus, I think coincides to some degree with the sell-off of crypto. This doesn't mean crypto's over. It might be. I always felt like it was a little bit of a tulip bubble, at least in the catastrophic in the stratospheric ranges. What do you think Saturn in Aries is going to bring in? Because that's around the corner on February, I believe, 13th.
yeah. Um, that is when things start getting, sort of uglier for the administration.
Okay.
Um, Saturn in Aries tends to be rough. I mean, the last time Saturn was in Aries was, Clinton and Lewinsky.
Mhm.
The time before that was Lyndon Johnson, realizing after the Tet Offensive that he, didn't stand a chance of winning a re-election, and so he decided not to run. The time before that was FDR when he was in a fight with the Supreme Court over New Deal legislation, and he was threatening to pack the court. It was sort of like a dip in his otherwise, highly esteemed presidency. Um, so they do tend to be these times when presidents, even someone like FDR, who was president for, well, elected to 4 terms, like that period when Saturn was in Aries was his toughest struggle of that whole time, in terms of his holding on to power. Obviously World War II was tough in another way, but there was no threat to his power during that time. So, yeah, they tend to be tough times for certainly for the presidency, where the cage is being shaken. Um, and yeah, the other thing I realize is by April, Mars is going to be in Aries with Saturn and Neptune. And the co-presence of Mars and Saturn in the same sign will be what a recurrence transit will resonate with the natal Mars Saturn co-presences of a lot of people in Trump's orbit, including JD Vance, who has Mars Saturn in Scorpio, RFK, who has Mars Saturn in Scorpio, Pete Hegseth, who has Mars Saturn in Virgo. Um, what's his name? Kash Patel, Mars, Saturn, and Virgo. Like a lot of those people on his team have the Mars Saturn co-presence. And excuse me, when Mars and Saturn are co-present in Aries, they're going to be like ferrets in a bag. They're going to be all vying for either turning on each other or conspiring against each other or what have you. The cracks are really going to be in there between those people.
Okay, let me back you up because you've
Sure
made some
thing.
really good points. Okay. So people like my channel because I break things down. Saturn has to do with constriction, responsibility. It has to do with accountability. It has to do with the Lord of Time. It's
The cold hard truth.
right. Okay. It's really kind of karma. It's like, Saturn doesn't let you off easily. It's hard work. Aries,
Suck it up, Buttercup.
suck it up, Buttercup. There you go. I like it. Aries is leadership. All right. So that's where Nick is saying that in previous times, there's kind of been the leader is held to account. The leader is put under some strain to work harder, to do better. Um, Aries energy also coincides with like things that have to do with fighting and wars and violence, but it also can be courage and new ideas and things that we haven't thought of before. So Saturn moving into Aries is going to be a very different energy than Saturn in Pisces, which Saturn in Pisces was a big mismatch. It was good in the sense that if you took spiritual responsibility and discipline, but how many people in this world seem to be doing that? So this will be kind of an interesting test. And now I would love your take on this because you're telling us that there are a lot of people. So we're going to have Nick back on in April because April's another big month. So this month we don't want to like get people too like down the road, but the big months of the year are February, April, and July. Would you agree?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
that's so I'm very interested though, since you brought up this Mars Saturn. What does Mars Saturn tend to because it sounds like there's a lot of people in Trump's
It's
orbit.
it yeah, it's kind of like driving with the emergency brake on, you know. It's kind of like trying to go full throttle, but something's holding you back. So there's a lot of trying to force one's way through something. And you're going to have a lot of people trying to force their way into the middle of the stage or force their way out, throw someone else under the bus.
Okay. All right.
So it's sort of like rough housing, so to speak. Not necessarily physically rough housing, but sort of vicious, turning on each other. That
And it's
yeah,
interesting, the three men that you mentioned,
four.
four. Okay. You had JD Vance, Cash
R-
Patel, Hegseth.
RFK and Hegseth. Yeah, can't leave out our. I think Vance and RFK are like going to be, the main round, and then I don't know, Cash and Hegseth or whoever else is, their um,
Okay. Fast.
preview matches or what have you. Yeah,
Yeah, I'm just
different
trying to
levels.
process this energy because Mars is quite charming. A Saturn Mars would kind of hold back the charm in some ways. However, these men also have, one was a like famous podcaster, one was on Fox News. The other one, I guess he was a Kennedy, but they've all have like addiction issues or, like they all have skeletons in their closet. So it's really kind of an interesting. So I guess it's going to
Yeah,
be
they're guys who have to keep something contained, like RFK or Hegseth. They can't let the brainworm out to roam, like they have to try to they kind of remind me, you remember the Men in Black movie? There's like the bug who's wearing the human suit and is trying to keep the human suit on, but the bug is like spilling out of the human suit. They're kind of like that. They're trying to keep the insect tucked inside the human suit, but it's fighting to get out.
great analogy. Okay. I think that we can kind of see that in all of them in different ways. So thank you. That was great. Okay. So so now we got Saturn moving into Aries, which is going to be a new round of accountability in our own personal lives. How would you say we can best use the Saturn and Aries energy?
um it's excellent for like a long term reconfiguring or starting a new project from scratch, something like that, something that's big, that's going to require a lot of time, that is, got a scope that is long relative to the person engaged in it. That's what it's for. It's not a time to be sort of non-committal or sticking to the same old tricks. There's a lot of newness that's always demanded.
So it's really a commitment to yourself. It's a commitment to what is going to.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
Okay. Because Aries is us, it's the I am. And so Saturn is asking you to commit to yourself in some way, in a new way. And that may mean
Yeah,
having better boundaries, new boundaries. It may mean putting more energy and
it's
work into a project like your software, uh, that, it's time to commit to yourself.
yeah, it's seeing yourself honestly too, though. It's the honest gauge, like, okay, this is a strength of mine, but this is my weakness. Although I see this weakness, I could work it, I can improve on it. Or no, I'm a hopeless case when it comes to this. I'll have to succeed despite this thing that I'm just not any good at. But it's got to be sort of honest and brutal. It doesn't have to be destructively brutal, but there's no kidding yourself at a time like this. If you don't have it, you won't be able to kid yourself that you do.
Yeah, and that's a very different energy than all the Piscean energy that we've been living in for years now.
Mm.
And so yeah, it'll come to kind of the cold hard truth, like you said. Like it's right there for all of us. And I'm seeing that in my own life. I'm starting to move away from my PR career where I was the head of a company, but I realize now this is not my calling. So I have to find that commitment to moving into a new direction. Okay. So then we have the eclipse shortly on the heels. So what's interesting about February is kind of like we've all sort of been like, whoa, what's been happening? So I think the first piece of the puzzle to me was the Uranus moving direct, and then it's going to be Saturn in Aries, and then it'll be the eclipse. Would you agree with that?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, absolutely. And the eclipse is on Trump's descendant, and it's exactly opposite where the great American eclipse of 2017 was. You remember the one he stared into?
That's like the only thing I remember about it was like him like looking right at the sun. Why did he do this?
Still makes me laugh that he did. But that eclipse was conjunct his ascendant and his Mars in late Leo. And now this one's happening on his descendant, opposite that other one. And that other one was, hey, look at me. I can stare into the eclipse.
And
And
nothing will happen to me.
yeah, Um, yeah, not only can he shoot someone on Fifth Avenue, he can stare into the eclipse and nothing will happen to him.
Right.
But I think, this is the counterpoint eclipse.
Okay. All right. And in the seventh house of relationships, of other people.
Other people taking him down. The one in 2017 was the North Node on his ascendant. And the North Node is the conscious assertive node where, eclipses happen on an axis of the South and North Node. The North Node is deliberate, conscious. It has an objective that it works toward. The South Node is more sort of magnetic. It's about what happens to you or happens to someone. Whereas in 2017, with the North Node on his ascendant, is like he was steering the ship, so to speak, of his life, not necessarily the country. The South Node on his ascendant, now with the eclipse happening on his descendant, implies that the conscious, deliberate action is on the part of someone else and not him.
So you're always so good at looking so far in the future. I don't. I'm kind of a month to month astrologer because I get a little overwhelmed. I mean, I kind of can do big picture of the year, but um, was this something that was on your radar during that ascendant, like that eclipse? Were you already
Oh,
looking?
the one in 2017?
Were you already kind of like, oh, this is an interesting bookend, or
No, No, I because in 2017 I was still very confused because I
There.
was confused because when Trump won in 2016, I was like, why is he winning in 2016? He's a 2024 guy. And I couldn't understand what was going on. I spent that whole period like having to recalibrate what I had thought because that was the thing that threw me. And then when the 2020 thing happened and Biden wins, but there's the January 6th and all this, and I'm like, oh, now I see he's going to come back and he's going to be mean and he's going to be that was when so it was in 2020 when I could really see like yeah, because up until that point, I it hadn't occurred to me non-successive terms, but it's only happened once before with Cleveland and not in a way like this. So, um, yeah, that's the thing.
Logic, frankly. It
Yeah,
really
yeah, I had to recalibrate. I had to see the astrology that I knew. I had to see it reflected in what was going on. And that was the thing that threw me was I didn't expect him in 2016 precisely because he was always, quote unquote meant to be president now. This was the predictable thing that he would be president in 2024 because of Uranus and Gemini. Because of the way his chart is, he's got the sun conjunct Uranus and the North Node in Gemini. He was born at a lunar eclipse. He is so of this time. I'm not saying this with praise, but it's just that's the
right.
astrological truth.
I mean, I've come to realize so much that something bigger is steering the ship. And I think there is a freedom in that I didn't have, frankly, in 2017, where I felt so invested and felt like I had to change things. And now things are really being revealed like, um, it's, it was revealed prior, but like the Women's March that took place after his first inauguration, there was a concerted effort by Russians to discredit all of the leadership of that movement, and it worked. And they turned them against each other, and so now we're seeing with the release of the Epstein files that the Me Too movement was a giant catalyst for them to put even more pressure and weird things out there, and that they may even be behind the QAnon movement on 4chan, which is like hubris on a scale that like is fascinating that get
And the
ahead
pizza
of it.
gate, the pizza, the word pizza comes up all the time. So like, there actually is a pizza gate. It's
Right.
not in the basement of some pizzeria, in
But it's
DC.
all projection. Like it's a
But
hundred
yeah,
percent. Like, I mean, yes, there are Democrats in the mix, but it is the people who are currently. It's fascinating that like
if
it's
if if
fascinating.
Alex if Alex Jones had just not been pro Trump, he would be like the 100% profit right now. Do you realize like
Right.
that's the irony is like he bet on Trump and that's clearly the mistake, but a lot of the other stuff he was talking about was totally true. It was just the spin. Like just take the Democrat off it, put the Republican in there. Well, there are a lot of Democrats also
Well, no, but
implicated, but
the people that they said were the saviors were the ones who started
right.
somehow releasing all this information into the wild about their own misdeeds and getting people behind it and projecting onto the wrong people. And so it's really fascinating that, I don't think anyway, we don't need to get into all that. But then, I do believe that like Leo and Aquarius have a lot to do with projection. That's an interesting.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Right. And so here we are, we're all seeing the projection because I have to admit, like, I thought that was insane that there was this like satanic, like sex cabal. Oh, well, apparently there was. And it does involve the WEF and it does involve royalty and it does involve, Hollywood producers and wow, like I had no idea. But it's interesting the cognitive dissonance of those that are not, Alex Jones, you bring him up. He posted an AI thing of Mondani with Epstein, which Mondani does not
Oh,
appear
I've seen that. The when he's a little boy,
right. Like
the
it's just like
the,
it's
the there's
garbage.
Mamdani's mom, Jeff Bezos, um, Epstein, Ghislaine. Someone else's, well, Bill Gates. That's right.
Right.
Bill
So it's
Gates.
all this
Yeah.
like AI slop to
Mm.
like, so they don't have to have the cognitive dissonance while 38,000 mentions go completely ignored. So yeah, that to me, that's going to be some. Would you say the Saturn and Aries and the eclipse, like would you say that that's going to be the story that's going to like be front and center, or it's hard to say because there could be so much else?
Yeah, no, I mean we're coming to crunch time. We're coming to crunch time where um you know the the, the bridge is sort of coming apart under their feet. Things are about to change in a big way, and there is going to be a shakeup.
So after the eclipse, just days after, is the exact conjunction of Saturn and Neptune. And because all of us astrologers have made such a fuss about it, there's a part of me that's like, what if like nothing happens that day, And it might not, right? But I think it's all happening already.
What day are the Clintons testifying?
Oh my gosh, I'll look it up. That's a good question. Wouldn't that be interesting? But they're not letting them do it publicly, which I also think is interesting.
Oh, they've changed their mind about on no, that was 3 days. Oh, they
No,
changed their mind to do it. Okay.
they just said,
Um,
let's stop the games. We want to do it publicly. I'm just looking for the date.
it says late February.
Okay.
So that's not going to be nothing.
That's
February
not,
27th.
yeah.
She's Hillary's on February 26th. Bill's on February 27th.
And it's really, really shocking how much is in there and then how much has been held back. And that victims' names have been released, but perpetrators have been redacted.
Yeah, there's this one crazy email where the perpetrator's name is blacked out, and it's like your youngest girl was very naughty, and it's like
It's pretty
bloody
bad.
hell. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's pretty bad. And literally just the person who wrote that is
Is
the only thing redacted on this email. I mean,
like, why
that's the
bother?
thing.
Right. Like, why bother? Like, why are we redacting and saying that? So anyway, yeah, there's going to be a tremendous pressure. And there'll be also, I think, Aquarius energy, more a tremendous international pressure because we're seeing accountability in other countries and pe people having to answer for it. And who knows who else has copies of this information as well. So going to be interesting. Going to be interesting. Okay, so on a personal level, let's talk about what people should be prepared for with this kind of back-to-back energy and how best to navigate it.
Yeah. Um, we're all getting a much better sense of where we are in our lives. We've all been sort of in a state of like, not confusion, but knowing that there's another shoe that's going to drop, not really being entirely sure of what direction we need to be heading in. And that all kind of sorts itself out just in certainly in these next few months, but even just in these next few weeks, we get closer and closer to having a vision for ourselves that's clear, that we can pursue with a good degree of confidence that we know what we're doing.
Beautiful. I love that. I think that I'm gonna go back and watch what you said again because I think it hits really well. I think it's succinct and I have nothing to add. So,
Yeah.
big month.
Big month. These eclipses with the North Node, they're very much about conscious intention as it is. And then Saturn Neptune just brings that's what I need to do. I was supposed to become a xylophone player. I will start to learn the xylophone, whatever it is, yeah, xylophone or otherwise. Um,
I love it. So I always forget to ask people because it does matter. So please, if you are not subscribed to this channel, please subscribe to this channel, like the video. And also, I would love to know like what are you discovering during this time about yourself? Like are you going to learn to play the xylophone? Like what's the thing that you are suddenly realizing? Like for me, I think we're make or break time for my career and like I think it's time for me to go full time as an astrologer, which is something that I've never done. And so it's a little scary. And that's part of the Aries energy is like doing things that scare us, like where there may not be the safety net that we're used to. So
Yeah.
would love to hear what what comes up when they hear Nick say that in the comments, because I think it's really interesting. We can share with each other, and that's part of the Aquarian energy is understanding we are all going through this together, and there are so many more of us that think alike than we've been led to believe. And there have been people that have been radicalized, but there have also been people that have just been confused. And there was a concerted effort to confuse them. And I think that that's coming out more and more and becoming more and more clear, the manipulation. And I think that there's a path back. And I have more optimism. Strangely, after the first couple weeks, I had to really process a lot. This has been a hard time for a lot of us, but people are stepping up. Things are moving, and they're moving in a direction that feels like a course correction in some ways. That doesn't mean there's not horrible things still happening and that we have to let our guard down. But we can do that with by while protecting ourselves energetically, but also step up and talk about, Nick and I made a joke about before we got on here about like what's in our texts and our emails and then and then we come on here and we just like say all this stuff and put it on the internet. So for us, this is like we've decided this is important for us to say. And the tool we have is astrology. And so we want to help people with that, keep your sanity, but also speak up. So anything you'd like to add to that, Nick?
No, that was beautifully said. Good luck out there, people. The answers are out there. They're there. They're waiting to land on you. So
Amazing. And for
suck it
all
up,
of you,
Buttercup.
that's right. Suck it up. And for all of you that were pro kitten, I think I may have been on a Nick video that I asked kitten or no kitten. Can't remember. But I ended up getting the kitten, and the kitten has been an amazing balm during a challenging time because she brings me joy. So find joy. Aries is also joy and fun. Like have some fun. So thank you, Nick. We'll see you hopefully again
Thank
next
you,
month.
Dabney.
I know you're going
You
to be
bet.
busy, so if it's always up to you whether you have time. But please check out Nick's website, Nick Dagan Best dot astrology
Astrologer. Nick
astrology.
Dagan, bestastrologer.com.
Okay, I'll put it in the description. Don't you worry.
Thank you.
Everybody, there's a reason and a season for it all. The universe is conspiring to help us. Hang in there. It's going to be bumpy, but we're making progress. Till next time.